I've got a taxi, and it's at whatever time. So if anyone still hasn't organised, I'm a taxi driver. Oh, that's probably, you know, that splits them.
Just decided to be spread out a bit more.
So no need
I'm not very sure, but what happens and then I go in and try it on. That's the only way I buy my
Waiting to raise.
You're right.
It's going to be the bar.
Carried out the instructions. Yeah, I think the cats are struggling with
Go on, Mark, give it. Mark.
Yeah, but she must have, I know she must be able to
Just testing here.
whether you don't need it, you don't need it. Stuff was going in the bin and I was like,
Simon, I understand your speech. I am. Good man. So if it doesn't work, it's my fault. Yeah. I won't be tapping it. I'm one of those people tapping boys somewhere.
Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders as we gather for our morning session. It says on my group sheet here, if anyone hasn't cleared their room out, they need to go and do it now, quickly. So hopefully you've been able to do that. Cleared your rooms out and you're ready to go. Sign-up sheets at the back for people wanting to book taxis to the station or to wherever. Oh, right, okay.
So I'm going to suggest that we're all careful. Anyone's wanting a taxi to Alfreton, can you hear me? If anyone's wanting a taxi to Alfreton, you stand up, wave, connect with someone else that wants to go to Alfreton and share a taxi with them. Any Alfreton station people? One? Jake, me, Caleb, that you'd be good to share a taxi together. He's at the back. Anyone looking to share a taxi to Derby? Anyone want to share a taxi with Ruth? If that sheet turns up as any other names, I'll connect you. But do you want me to do my other housekeeping at the moment? Why not? The other housekeeping announcement I quickly wanted to make, only because we've had a few questions about this, is the difference between the feedback forms in your folders and the course evaluation forms. The feedback forms, which I know you've all been diligently filling in as we go along, are the ones that go back to the planning group so that they can decide what you'd like more of next year, what you'd like less of, any brilliant ideas for workshops, all of those kind of things. So these ones go in the back, in the box at the back of this room, and I'll collect them and give them to next year's planning group. The other one is the course evaluation sheet, a self-learning tool. Yes, Mark? I can do that. I can do that. I think I have all your email addresses. Apologies if you don't want that, but I will email that to everyone and say, can you either digitally or scan it or somehow send it back to me, and I can do it that way. The second one is the course evaluation sheet, and this has UK BHC in letters on the top. This is the one for those who either for UK board or for any other professional organisation they belong to. For those of us who want to collect CPD points, you do have a certificate in your room for CPD points, in your room, in your folder even. But this certificate only becomes valid if you actually spend some time evaluating the course and what you've learned and how it's affected you and what you take away from it. So this one, the course evaluation sheet, should sit with your certificate in your CPD folder and your folder, however you keep it. And if we are asked to evidence why we're claiming those CPD points, you've got all the reflection work here. Is that okay with you, Mr. Betteridge? Lovely. Yeah, so feedback forms either in the box at the back of the room, or if no one minds, I will email them out to everyone so that you can redo that. If you've lost your course evaluation sheet, they are actually on the UK board website, so you can access and print your own off for this or any other CPD board. Any questions?
We didn't do a photo last night in all our finery, and a few people said, oh, well, we're not having a photo. No one knows where they go. They all just disappear into the ether, but I've got a couple. I'm wondering, if someone's got an objection to being photographed, then are you happy to go and stand by the piano or out the back? Because I can just literally take a photograph of everybody here just waving, and that will be the college photo. It'll be suitably informal and in keeping with this year. Is that okay? Yeah. So, yeah, sit back. I know not everyone's keen on photographs, that's fine. I'm going to just take a photograph now. We'll go sit down there, and we'll just have there. Is that right? Yeah, I've already photobombed so many people's other photographs. I think it's if somebody wants to take one in a second with me in it, then I'll have something to prove my wife I was here and not on something. There we go. And I've got a photograph of Taylor Edwards phone. Oh yeah, everybody wave if you can, or some sort of gesticulation. Prove that you're alive. Lovely. That's great. Thanks to you. Oh, priceless. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt your phone.
Good morning, everyone. And I don't know about you, but I don't really know where the last few days have gone. They seem to have just gone by so quickly. It wasn't that long ago where we were here on Monday afternoon, conference day one and session one, and here we are on day three, our final session together. So welcome to our final morning. Well, if you're anything like me, my bag is packed, my lift is booked, my train tickets are checked, I'm on the right train, and my thoughts, quite naturally, as I'm sure for most of us, are beginning to think about going back to work, going back home, whatever context that is for us, and naturally so. And we wanted this last session to be meaningful for each of us, and hopefully it will be. So we're not going to give you any new information in a sense. We've got a couple of speakers who are going to share with you, and then we're going to give some time for you to reflect on conference. And we've absorbed a lot of information, have we not? And it would be good just for a little time this morning just to have some time individually and then together to reflect on that which we've been taking part in and sharing here at conference. Applied healthcare chaplaincy, making a difference on the ground. And we'll reflect on the fact that we already make a difference on the ground and what that means, but also perhaps taking something away. What's our takeaway from conference this year that we'll be taking back for ourselves and our teams, our places of work that may make a difference and continue to develop all that we do. So, an introduction from me, and this is the introduction from me, and then we're going to hear from Simon and Alison. They're going to have sort of 8 to 10 minutes each to share with you their reflections and thoughts, not only of conference, but perhaps for the future. And then we'll have some time individually that I'll guide, and then some time together, and then some plenary and some questions and some comments. And then to close the session, I'm going to ask David Buck to come and just read the poem that he read this morning, one of 3 that he read this morning before we went to breakfast. And I just heard it and I thought, do you know what? I just would love to end our session this morning that way. And so David is gracious. He said that if I remind him, he'll come up and read that, and then there'll just be a moment's reflection then, and then Simon will come and give the closing remarks. So, without further ado, and with my grateful thanks, I'm just going to invite now Simon Bettridge, who is Chair of UK BHC, to come and just share his reflections on conference and some thoughts that he might have to share with you this morning, making a difference in our own settings, applied healthcare chaplaincy, making a difference on the ground. So thank you, Simon.
Hello, everybody. Stand over here so you can hear me. The reason I don't like standing behind these things is because I can't stand still when I'm speaking. I end up walking around, so I'll end up being kind of doing this. If I'm not standing still, just tell me off, okay? In the team that I work in Coventry, in Warwickshire, we use a lot of narrative inquiry tools and story. Do you want to put that on, Isabel?
Yeah. That's how you usually want to do.
Okay, there you go. I can forget about that now and walk around. Am I on? Can you hear me all right? And we use a lot of narrative inquiry models and stuff, and in that, there's a lot of sharing story, a lot of experience, and a lot of creating space together. And to use a phrase that I nicked off Mark Stobart many years ago, about how we create sacred space together and what that means. And when we do that and we create that sacred space, it becomes unique and powerful for those that have been part of that and those that have been part of that unique story. And as much as we go out from here after these 3 days and we convey to our colleagues and our friends and families and stuff what it was like, nobody else will quite share in the uniqueness of that sacred space in the way that we have done. No one will be able to fully enter into the stories that our colleagues shared very poignantly on that first morning of their own journeys and their own experiences. So there is something very sacred about what we've experienced over these few days. And equally, what that means to us and how we experience meaning through that belongs just to us as well in some ways. But then we take that experience of meaning and we ask, so what? And at the end of when we do a narrative inquiry session or a story circle or whatever we choose to call it, the so what is always a really important part. And for a lot of the people that we engage with in those sessions, for them to be given the power of the so what question is often quite new for them because they're used to professionals telling them what something is meant to mean or what they're meant to do with it. And so when we give them the power of the so what, it becomes something much richer and new for us. So in a sense, this morning, we have the unique power of the so what and to what that might mean for us. I did want to just say thank you to those people that have been up here doing stuff because, and I've had conversations with most of them individually, that actually whilst the aim of what we did for this was not reconciliation, that wasn't said or overt in any way, that actually I think what we've experienced this week becomes part of a reconciliatory work within chaplaincy, where we bring people together in a new way and start to be able to tell a new story because of those kind of conversations. So thank you for that. So I think what we've experienced gives us a great sense of opportunity. And I've been struck, as I said, by the humility and the vulnerability and the openness of what we've seen and experienced. And I do think it's shown a new image of chaplaincy, a new vision for what that might look like, and a platform for what we might build from in a new way. In the time I've been a chaplain, in the time that I've was a lead chaplain, and now the time that I've been senior manager in the NHS, I've seen chaplaincy change and grow and ebb and flow, and it's my view that now we're in a new place and a new opportunity, in some ways a better place than we've ever been to build from, and I think we've seen some of that over the last few days. And I think what we have seen is not this pretense of being generic, but actually what we are is accepting and gracious, confident in each other, encouraging of each other, and able to do that in a way that is not fearful or mistrusting, but actually builds a new relationship together. Some of you will know I'm a huge fan of Barack Obama, and I quote Obama quite a lot. And Kerry, who's from my team somewhere, will probably has heard me say this way too many times. But in Barack Obama's first election campaign, one of the key phrases for their campaign was respect, empower, and include. And for me, that encompasses something about where we go with chaplaincy and what we've seen in this conference this week. I said already that we use narrative inquiry quite a lot in our team, and through this we seek to enable people to identify positives, sometimes we call assets if we're using the jargon, yeah. But the point of that is that we enable individuals or communities or whatever it is to identify these things that are good. And their so what is usually, how can we do more of that? How can we enable people and give people the power to do more of those things that they identify are good and less of the unhelpful stuff? And I think for me, there's a challenge from the last few days of how do we now as chaplains go away from here to do more of the good stuff and less of the unhelpful stuff? And how do we work together to do that? So in both my area where I work in Coventry and also in my role in UK BHC, yeah, that's a question that I want to take away from this is how do we in our own team do that, but how do we as a board, how do we enable that more? And through Emma's time with us yesterday, we saw that there's a long way to go. There are lots of those questions about how we evidence what we do, what contributes to that, what do people expect us to be contributing, what's the language we use, who are we speaking to, all of that stuff that Emma talked about, that are really powerful but not easy. But actually it's a journey that we need to enter into, I think, really positively, and again, not fearfully. And there are some excellent and really good tools around that help us to do that. And sometimes it's a piece of hard work that we need to just do, yeah. but actually evidencing what chaplaincy might do now and learning the language that is needed doesn't need to be as complicated sometimes as we dress it up to be. And from the board, in terms of good, safe practice, and from the college, in terms of development and learning, we need to be able to work together to help those kind of things come together. So for me, I think, we're stronger together. I sound like a politician, don't I? This is not the end of a party conference yet. We're going out there, we're going to win this election, yeah? I'm not wearing red or blue, we're okay. But collaboration in terms of our trusts, I have the privilege of working in a large acute trust with resources and a big team. Some of our neighbouring trusts don't have that, and they really struggle to do things like, maintaining on call at weekends and stuff like that, and how to maintain services around baby loss and funerals and that kind of thing. And for me, it would be criminal of us with the privileged position in a large trust not to share the resources and the learning that we have, and to enable our colleagues in smaller local trusts to be able to have the same privilege and to share what we have with them. And so I think, that partnership and that collaboration and that entrepreneurial spirit that Jez talked about when he was up there yesterday, that we should be able to do that together and sharing those things. I'm talking too long, aren't I? I need to wrap up. Yeah. We also heard from Emma yesterday about, and others have talked about this, about the place of chaplaincy through the pandemic and what that has been like, and how we've highlighted several times that the fact that the position of chaplaincy, even what chaplaincy would have looked like pre-pandemic to what it looks like now, is very different. Some of you will have seen what I wrote after the UK board meeting 2 weeks ago, and it was the first in-person board meeting since the end of 2019. And I'm really pleased to say, and I'm not saying this is the end of a journey or we should rest on any laurels or say, look what we've done, but as part of the journey, the makeup around that table of chaplaincy looked very different. There were people from non-religious backgrounds, there were faces that were brown and black, there were people who were from Muslim and non-religious backgrounds, and there were people of different types as well. And that would not have looked like that even at the end of 2019. And so chaplaincy does look very different, but also the perception of chaplaincy for our employers looks quite different in some places as well. I had a conversation with our own chief exec, and he said to me that in general, he'd noticed the services and the teams that during the pandemic had flourished and grown, and those which had hidden and withered. And I think that's been true of chaplaincy, and as he's identified it, true of other services as well. And so I guess there might be a question for reflection, is that why did some of those teams flourish, and why did some wither and diminish? And again, what can we do more of that good stuff from the ones that grew and flourished, and how can we share that? I think chaplaincy needs to retell its own story. It needs to be a story for a new audience, and we've talked about that a lot again this week. And in Christian theology, we talk about sometimes how do we sing a song in a strange land when we've gone into a new place that was unexpected. How do we sing that song of who we are? And how do we express who we are, but in a new way and a new song? So how do we enable a new narrative that celebrates our roots, but enables us to bear new fruit and to grow new fruit in a new way? How can we speak of what chaplaincy offers in a language that is meaningful, and meaningful to a new generation, as we heard this week, a generation for whom the word spirituality means nothing, let alone anything else? And how do we express what the richness and the wonderfulness of what chaplaincy can offer, but in a language to those people for whom that is not the case? And talking to Mark yesterday and Lindsay this morning, I coined the phrase around McDonald's. Yeah, McDonald's will always be McDonald's. McDonald's are not going to change their name the golden arch of McDonald's is not going anywhere. But they've had to change. They can't just produce beef burgers anymore. They've had to engage with how to produce less food in an environmental way. They've had to engage with the increase of veganism and plant-based products and all the things that are important to the younger generation who they want to eat at McDonald's. And they've had to retell that story of what it means to be McDonald's in that context, and will continue to need to do so. And I kind of figure there's a sort of metaphorical parallel there for where we are in chaplaincy. We are chaplains, that's who we are. But we need to retell and re-own and reinvigorate that story for a new generation and what we might be. And to go back to Barack Obama, you know, what does it mean for us as chaplains to respect, empower and include each other, but also those people that we work with and we try to support and encourage and enable in both at the bedside and in our communities and GP surgeries or wherever it might be, and all that looks like. So I think it's been a fantastic conference, better than the ones that I did many years ago, Mark, when I had the privilege of kind of doing what you've done. So it's been fantastic, and hopefully that you found it as rich and as thought-provoking as I have. So here we go.
Thank you, Simon. Now I'm going to invite our college registrar, my dear colleague and friend Alison Klein-Dean, to come up and share her reflection on conference and her thoughts. Thank you, Alison. Thank you. I'm glad you're not alone. You're coming with company.
For those of you who have not met this little one, his name is Burglebeck. I collect teddies. And he was given to me when I left Colchester and Ipswich, also known as Esnet, from the oncology ward. And his t-shirt says, "World's Best Chaplain." I do not admit to being the world's best chaplain. I am not the world's best chaplain. But it was an honor to work with that ward and to visit with their patients. And it is incredibly humbling for me to be up here at the front because I don't like being in the limelight. And inside, I am shaking. I am that nervous because I don't know what I can share with you that would be meaningful. As soon as I open my mouth and I start to speak, I self-disclose that I am not British, although I am now a British citizen. And so coming over here, after spending many years in Canada as a chaplain, working in long-term care, the equivalent of a nursing home, has been a learning experience. And I have 28 years under my belt as a chaplain and 9 years here. So I've had to learn everything new. Being a reader over here, and I'm 36 years a reader, has been a learning experience because everything is different here compared to where I've come from. Back home in Canada, I was the deanery warden of readers. I taught others how to do things. So coming over here, yes, I learned lots in Canada, but it has been a huge learning curve for me here. So coming to conference and meeting others, the first thing I have tried to do, and the first lesson that I have tried to ensure is that people are made to feel welcome and that it is done graciously. And whether that's the email that I receive as registrar that says, "I can't access the website," or how do I become a part of CHCC? And it's just about, that's not a problem. Let me know what your membership number is. If you're part of Unite, but you're not yet part of CHCC, let me know what your membership number is. And I write a little email to Emma and to Mark and say, could you please wave your magic wands and arrange for the transfer of membership and make sure that this person has access to the website. So for me, because in many ways, in my various moves, I have not been made to feel welcome. And so for me, it's about ensuring that people here at the conference, by email, on the telephone, on the wards, are made to feel welcome. To be, in the words of somebody way back in 2013, who said, we are both guest and host at the bedside. That as we walk on sacred ground, which the bedside is, or our residence room is, that we are the ones who enable the welcome, who enable them to open up about what's happening in their lives, who enable us to hear their stories, hear their narratives. And then when we go back to the team, put it down in a way that is meaningful. Team notes don't say it all. But if you've been paged in at 2:00 in the morning to the bedside of somebody who is dying, and you've had the privilege of hearing those very special stories of what made this granny special, what was the favorite dish that she prepared, what made this grandfather such a person in this person's life, and it could be the fishing trips they did, and taught them how to put a worm on the hook, or teach them how to make the flies. Those are the stories that resonate. It's the picture above the bed of a gentleman with a chest full of medals, who's now very, very ill. And when I asked the granddaughter, I said, how are you related? She said, I'm his granddaughter. Tell me about this gentleman. Well, that was taken last, I guess it's Remembrance Sunday over here, isn't it? And she told me about his service and about how he was at the cenotaph and how he laid a wreath. And all of a sudden now he's in a bed, 4 weeks later, unable to walk, now being pushed around in a wheelchair. And he died 2 days later. But she put flesh on the bones of this patient that was, the patient in Bedford. No, I'm sorry. That's Mr. So-and-so, and he has a granddaughter, and he has a daughter, and he has 3 great-grandchildren. He is a veteran. He is somebody we honor and respect. And so for me, coming to conferences, how do we make each of you feel welcome? And how have each of you made others feel welcome? How have you done it graciously? But also, when we're challenged, how do we ask the question that enables others to open up about why they feel that way? And as Simon said, how do we respect and empower them to continue that journey? So for me, I moved to Hull 18 months ago, and I won't get into the story, but let's just say I spend a lot of weekends traveling back and forth to Chelmsford, and so does my husband, so we can see one another. But 2 weeks ago was the first time I was actually made to feel welcome by the Anglican faction. When the Archbishop of York, who used to be my bishop in Chelmsford, literally jumped out of the line of bishops as he saw my husband and I processing up York Minster and gave me a hug and shook my husband's hand like this. And he went, oh, it's lovely to see you. Welcome to the diocese. Nobody else has done that. I've had no clergy other than my own team say, welcome. So to come here and be able to greet each one of you and say, welcome, it's lovely to have you with you, and to put names and faces together has been fantastic for me as a registrar, because all I ever see are the names on emails. It's been great to work with Alison and Mark and Simon and Andrew and Adrian and a host of others working in the background here even on the video stuff. And I know how much work goes into that, because back in the Diocese of Algoma, I used to be on the communications team. And we used to have to set up the cameras, and we used to have to lay the cable, and we used to have 4 camera people going, and I was on the laptop amending motions. And we were the first ones in the hall, and we were the last ones in. So from here, thank you, Mark, thank you, Karen, thank you, Caleb, for what you've done. Because again, you have made those joining us online welcome. And you've done it in a gracious way. And that may be one of our challenges now, post-COVID, is how do we incorporate those who may not be able to meet face to face, but in our regions? How do we maybe arrange for the hybrid meetings to happen? With the COVID numbers going up, we may not be able to meet face to face humanly in one spot, but how could we do that? How do we incorporate the technology to ensure that people are not feeling left out? I can tell you as registrar, when somebody says, I'd like to transfer into CHCC, one of the first things I do, besides email Mark and Emma, is I also include the regional coordinator, so that they can send a letter or a note of welcome and make sure they're invited to whatever collaboratives or gatherings may be happening, just to make sure that these people are included. Our other challenges, though, and as I reflect on this, I'm not seeing a lot of people with hair that's not grey or silver. So I constantly wonder, where are the new generation of chaplains going to come from? The word spirituality, as has been said at this conference, is so nebulous. What does it mean? Where are our younger chaplains now going to come from? What are they going to, and how are they going to learn about becoming a chaplain? It is a vocation. It is calling. It is something that is felt deep within each of us. For those of us who have come into chaplaincy as a second career, I'll admit I was 20 years a legal assistant before I became a chaplain. But it's people coming in. So where do they find the education? Where do they find the learning? It's really neat to see, at the back, there's an MA, there's online. Mark sent out the narrative yesterday, so there's a module on pediatric chaplaincy with Paul Nash. There are other learning opportunities, but how do we broadcast that? How do we get that out to people? How do we let them know what's out there and what they might be able to do? Yes, we're looking at a CPE stream pilot project. Don't know if that funding is going to be able to be continued, but it's great to see that it's being looked at and that there are people interested in it. I'm CPE trained, don't have the whole thing, but I do have 2 units. It's tough, but it gives some real insights to yourself and how to work with others. So that's one stream. And then the academic research and programs, that's another stream. And we have those options to explore, to investigate, to challenge our own selves, and maybe to challenge others. We have new guidelines coming out. We have the 2015 guidelines, and we have other guidelines that will hopefully be out in the near future. How do we take those and work with them and just enhance what we do as chaplains? They will be challenging. I'm sure they'll be challenging, just the draft that I saw way back in April, March, when we had a short period to give feedback. But I think it will do us good to see those guidelines and to know that they've been updated and made more relevant to where we're at. And how do we use them? We have a UK BHC Code of Conduct. I'm used to working with a Code of Conduct. Being a CPE trained, part of the Canadian Association of Spiritual Caregivers, I've always worked with a Code of Conduct. So how do we take the Code of Conduct, how do we take the guidelines and use it? How do we work with data? I love data. Alison and I love Excel spreadsheets, really good ones. And taking data, minimum data sets, and just being able to say, right, this many calls came in that were non-urgent, and this percentage were urgent. And the number of calls that came in between 10 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock the next morning were this, and the number of calls that come in between 8 and 4 are this, and having it all done as pie charts that others can actually see, understand, and go, wow, we need to look at this, or do we need to put more chaplains on at this time rather than just having one chaplain covering between 4 and 8? Do we need to have somebody working until 10? So looking at the different avenues that data can enhance for chaplains. I think for me, where do I go from here? Where do we go from here? Well, I've only been the registrar for just over a year. I still have lots to learn. I would welcome any questions that you would have, and if I don't know the answers, I know who to go to find them. There's Simon. There are other regional reps who may know far more than I do. There are union reps in the hospital that I can probably go and pick their brains. But we're all encouraged to do that. So if you have an issue, find your regional rep or find your hospital Unite rep. See where we can go with that. I will admit being part of a union is new to me. We don't have a union in Canada. We just don't. So coming over here and saying, right, if you want your errors and omissions insurance, you have to join CHCC Unite. Okay, deep breath, another learning experience because unions don't have a good name in Canada. So coming over here and being part of a union is a new learning experience, but it has been made very pleasurable by the people that I've worked with. Where do we go? We go out those doors. We take the stories that we've heard. We may be challenged by some of those narratives, but then that encourages us to do a lot of self-reflection on why is that challenging for us personally, in our teams? How do we move forward with those narratives, with the things that we heard in the keynote panels, in the workshops that were done? And how do we incorporate that into our practice? I didn't get to the workshops because I'm trying to do the little things under the surface that make things flow smoothly, supporting some other chaplains as well. So I didn't get there, but from what I heard, they were pretty good. So I'd just like to commend those who were brave enough to put their names forward to speak up here at the front or lead the workshops. Thank you for challenging us. Thank you for teaching us. And thank you for making us feel welcome.
Thank you, Alison, and thank you, Simon, for sharing and reflecting with us this morning, and for all that you've brought to conference. Thank you. We're going to invite you just to now to reflect individually, and then in small groups, 2s, 3s, or whichever number you're comfortable with. But just to spend a little bit of time just thinking about how has the conference made a difference for you, those things that we've learned and shared together, but also, and even more importantly, just reflecting on the difference that we already make, and the difference that we have made as individuals and as teams to countless lives, which are probably summed up by maybe an individual memory. At a workshop yesterday that I was at, the privilege of being at, I think it was Mia, and just simply said, we're about making the world a better place as chaplains. And we do that each and every day, I know we do. So I'd like us just to be really radical. You can break the chairs out, you can go into a side room if you want to, but just to spend the next sort of 10 minutes or so, just on your own. You can use the evaluation sheet from UKBHC if that's a guide that you would welcome, but you don't have to. You can write, you can think, you can draw, you can do whatever is helpful to you. And then after sort of about 10 minutes or so, I'll just invite you back to find 3 or 4 others where you can just talk to, share your stories with, what conference has meant to you and what you're going to be taking away with you as you return to home and into work, but also maybe just that person, that pastoral episode that has come back to your mind, even maybe just this morning, that reminds you of the difference that we all already make and already made to so many people's lives. So just find a spot where you are, just break out where you need to be, and just have around about 10 minutes or so, as I said, and then I'll call you back, just in quiet, and then we'll have some plenary to finish with our guests back on stage for any questions or reflections that you might have. Is that okay? So we'll just break out just for a moment, and then I'll ask you to join small groups in a few minutes or so. Just have some time to yourself where you are, and if you need to go and find a space and take a chair somewhere, then that would be good. Please feel free to do so, and then we'll come back together. As we reflect and share together, please feel free at any point just now, maybe just with those around you, talk through anything that has made a difference for you, or something that's come to mind that you'd like to share. So please assemble in small groups, 3 to 4, whichever is best for you, and we'll have around about 10 minutes or so together, and then we'll come back to speak to our guests, speakers, and to our final closing comments. Please feel free to do so and to share. For those coming back in to join us, who've gone for a walk and a refreshment break, please just find a small group and share for the final time with any of your colleagues around you, just for the next 10 minutes or so, before we draw everything together. Thank
You're laughing, you're not We could talk about the evidence, you know, the solution.
Okay, everyone, I almost feel guilty doing this, but I did promise that we'd just have a few moments for comments toward the end of our session. My instinct was to let you talk for longer, which I've let you do, which is wonderful. And I could leave you talk all morning, but we're almost at the end of our conference. So, Alison and Simon, if you could just rejoin us just for a few moments, it'll be a little bit shorter than we planned, because you've just enjoyed talking. And it's far more important than me talking. So, thank you for that. And then David is going to come and close this part of the conference before Simon H comes with the poem that will draw conference together. So Caleb, as he's always been, along with Kieran throughout conference, is primed. Is there anyone who just would like to make a final comment or ask something of Alison and Simon? We've literally got about 5 minutes, because as I said, I've let you talk longer because you just seem to be really engaged. So that's fantastic. So if you'd like to make a final comment or anything you'd like to say, please, Caleb is ready, so please just raise your hand and we'll just have 5-6 minutes together. Is there anything that anyone would just, any reflection on conference, anything you were taking away with you on the theme, or anything that came out of the group conversations that you had? If there isn't, I'll make my final comment, and then I'll hand over to David and then Simon for the final plenary and comments. Lindsay, thank you.
Just a brief comment, and actually I was talking to you about it this morning, Simon, as well, that I think it's a very lucky time at the moment for chaplaincy, because I know we're in a bit of an existential crisis, but I think there's so many opportunities. Even yesterday we were noting down the different kinds of ways of how to develop forwards. There's a lot of similarities there, and I'm just really looking forward to what the next 3-5 years bring and how we shape that together as a field. So I'm excited.
We've just been talking a little bit over here about some of the bigger pictures of how chaplains speaking to the larger strategic conversations of our health and wellbeing care. And I was talking about the weird world of ICS program boards and stuff. But I think what Lindsay's just been saying about the existential crisis of our society, that actually chaplaincy has something to say into the bigger picture of the well-being of our communities, not just the people in our hospital beds and GP surgeries and mental health wards and hospices. That actually, as we have something from the models we use traditionally in chaplaincy that actually are a vehicle for how we speak into some of the bigger issues of our society and work with public health, particularly in that as well. And I think there's some huge opportunities there for us.
Sure, thank you.
Yes, just was reflecting on the experience. It's my first time at a conference, especially a 3-day one, or 2.5 days, I should say. As a Muslim imam, I've met some difficult imams in my life, to be honest. I think they need to just chill out and relax a little bit. I will be telling them that. But I mean, it's for me, it was such an eye opener, to be honest. The conversations that I had with some of the people here. I mean, I haven't had the chance to reflect fully, and I will be doing so. But I really enjoyed the conversations and the genuine honesty of the people that I spoke to. There was no one being pretentious or no one being fake polite, if you like. It was genuine, and I felt that. And that I will be taking that to my community as well. That not everyone's out to get you. Not everyone thinks that you're a bad person. There are very many good people out there that actually care about you as a human being, and they respect what you do and who you are as a person, And so and yesterday, especially Simon, when he was going about each of the tables at the dinner, and he was kneeling, with his, just so that he could talk to people. Well, he came to our table anyway, and then the next thing he was I thought I was okay. But that is profound. Going out of your own way to make people feel comfortable. That was it's just thank you. Really, it shows good character, excellent character. These are things that prophets do. Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. Abraham, they go out of their way to make people feel welcome. He didn't have to do that. He couldn't just be standing there or pulled up a chair. But he was on his knees, just saying, hey, what's happening? How are you doing? You all right? This and that and the other. So these kind of things really will stay with me for a very long time. Thank you.
And yes, thank you. One from the back, and then just one, the lady from the front, and then we'll hand over to David for our final coming together.
Yeah, thanks. No, this is my first conference, and I've only been a chaplain for 2.5, nearly 3 years now. So I'm still in the very steep learning curve. What struck me was there was still quite significant disparity between the trusts on how chaplains were being received, how they fared through the pandemic. There were still lots of ups and downs. But it also struck me that there's quite a significant number of us, and I wondered what we could do nationally. And the thing that really burns on my heart is this idea of being an advocate nationally for what we've learned out of the pandemic. And one of the significant things for me was the incorrect treatment of isolation of families from their loved ones during the crises, because the trauma of that, I think we're going to be reaping for years to come. And I wondered if this was maybe the platform where we could also say, well, what advocacy voice do we have nationally to influence the care that we believe is so important, both in our now chaplaincy roles, but in the transition into community care that is also being prevalent, in the National Health Strategy, the Integrated Care Strategy. So I just put that out there. It may well be happening, and I'm not aware of it, but I would love us to be actually doing the research and the advocacy to learn from the pandemic, to think about alternative ways that we could have maybe been better prepared and to bring healing to those who have been separated and did not have that grieving process. So just a thought.
Thank you. And I'll just bring in our colleague here towards the front, and Simon and Alice will have heard that along with Mark and Simon. Thank you for your comment. Thank you.
Hello, Sonia Casibante from Leeds. Start off by acknowledging that we do not work in competition with our colleagues in the NHS, but in collaboration. But I don't know if, like me, you found a variety of reactions on the wards. So doctors are sometimes incredibly polite and respectful. Others are not so much. You feel sometimes dismissed. You might be talking to a patient and somebody just comes in and completely blanks you and gets on with the same patient. But a word of encouragement. I was once with a patient who was very articulate, and a doctor turned up at her bedside and she said to him, "Can you please come back? This is important to me," meaning the spiritual care that she was receiving at the time. And I just wanted to offer that as a word of encouragement for myself and for everybody else. What we do is important. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. David, would you like to come and draw our session to a close with what you shared with us earlier this morning? I think it's our appetite for where we've been and how we've journeyed today. Thank you to Simon and to Alison for all that you've shared, and Teddy as well, for all that you've brought to us this morning, and hopefully you find it enriching and meaningful. And David's going to read the poem, and then after a moment Simon will come and share in the last 10 minutes so together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'm just going to say a few words before I read the poem, if that's okay. I won't be long, don't worry. Just want to say that it's felt good to be a conference chaplain, and it's felt good for me to lead times of reflection where I can read my poetry, where I can use my voice, and that's meant a lot, and even play my flute as I did yesterday morning. Everything that we do is a creative engagement in which we make a difference. And I have certainly enjoyed these encounters with each of you. So thank you. Thank you very much. I can't help wondering what the conference next October will be like, with its theme of creative and safe. Squaring the circle. The last poem I shared in this morning's reflection spoke of the ground being a safe place to be on and to return to when leaping in the air. In my poetry, I speak of spiritual care as being the air. I put it like this. This is my definition of spiritual care. Can you be the air resting in the spaces between all that is said and done and all that is not? Now, this mellifluous, flowery language is wonderful and can be helpful at times, but it is good to return to solid ground and have something firm to stand on. So thank you for this conference, which is about making a difference on that ground upon which we walk and move and have our being and do our work. Thank you. So the poem that Mark wanted me to read again today is this one. Changed by serving. Now imagine how different it would be if no one would do anything to help. No doctors, nurses, or first responders. No scientists, lab technicians, researchers. No teachers, shop assistants, or builders. No farmers, vets, delivery drivers. No bank clerks, council or postal workers. No dentists, chemists, no sandwich makers, no taxi, buses, or phone repairers, no volunteers, vaccinators, carers. And imagine how different it would be if you did not do anything to help. No happy morning smile with a cheery air. No family bubble or listening ear. No happy to talk on a walk somewhere. No helpful advice about new software. No, yes, I'll set to and do that repair. No, I'll remember you daily in prayer. No, can I offer you help in your despair? No gentle inquiry, concern, or care. And that was followed with a question this morning, which I repeat now. What difference have you made? And just to repeat what was said earlier, each of us makes a difference in all of our encounters. And you and myself, we make a difference that really matters. We make an important difference in the world in which we live and breathe and have our being. So thank you to you all in your work, and thank you for the difference that you all make. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Now I'm going to hand over to Simon to close our 2022 conference.
Before I do, is oh, yeah, there you are, Alison. You can do that. You can do the honours.
What was a hug?
All you wanted was a hug. All she wanted was a hug, and she ended up organising a conference. How about that? Yes, you can go, because we'll talk about it. Alison has already been thanked, but I do want to thank both Alison and Mark for their double act in terms of what they've done to bring the conference together. There was a planning conference group, of which I'm privileged to be a part of, until we got an email from them saying, thanks very much, we don't need you for a while, you are disinvited, which was wonderful to be disinvited, because the two of them basically just wanted to get on and make it happen. And then, of course, you did call us back in when we were hopefully of some use. I do hope that in this conference, at least some folk have approached either of you to say, we would like to be involved in the pattern of this going forward. Because it's something that, I know Mark Hewitt set up this pattern of having conference sit slightly apart from the National Steering Group, from OPC, to have its own life, its own voice and its own journey, and an evolving group of chaplains who become involved, become more involved, step back, share their wisdom, and then stop. It's part of the trying to make the life of the college continue and the shape of conference evolve. So if you've got that inkling that you might want to be involved, before they go, grab them, put your names forward, because if this next year is not going to work for you, it might be the year after. I don't want to repeat other Alisons, the joy of having two Alisons, other Alisons, very gentle and very right words of thanks for the wider group of people who made the college work. She did thank Mark, she thanked the team, she thanked Caleb and Kieran for stepping up and suddenly helping with technology. They made the mistake of saying, can we help it anyway? Always a ridiculous thing to say. I just want to mention one more person who hasn't been mentioned yet, and that is this gentleman here, which is Philip, our treasurer, who very quietly gets on with an awful lot of stuff to make the college work generally, and conference time is quite a busy time, and he can't even charge it against his trust having retired. It's his time that he gives to all of us, so I want to say a special thank to you, if that's okay. The other thing I want to steal from what Alison said was the sense that she said that hospitality was at the heart of what the college is meant to be. I think people said those words, but that's what I heard from what you said, and you embodied in the way you speak. I think it does have to be that way. And I think the connections that I've seen people making during the conference is central to that. There was a very deliberate thought that there would be these 3/4 of an hour breaks, not half an hour breaks, and they would be protected. And it's been utterly brilliant watching people make use of that. I've seen a couple of people whose telephones have got far more contacts in now than they did before. But I think that is vital. We talked earlier about some trusts, some boards thrived during COVID in a very challenging time. Thrive seems the wrong word, but they came into their own. And some were extremely well welcomed by the senior folk. But there were also some utterly brilliant chaplaincy teams that were marginalised through no fault of the trust, no fault of the chaplaincy. It was the culture, it was whatever it was. And there's going to be a time of rebuilding for those teams. And that's where the connectivity helps. There's nothing like embarrassing a trust by telling them what the neighbouring trust is doing. Did you know next door we've got 8 chaplains, all doing staff well-being work, and by the way, they've all got their own parking spaces. These things, these stories are vital. And it only takes 1 or 2 trusts to do something special for you to be able to. You don't mention the fact that none of them get paid or they're all. There's a sense in which those connections are vital in terms of how we internally communicate to our trust, but also how we hear other people's experiences. And there does have to be. I loved Simon's talking about the solidarity with neighbouring trusts that have either don't have the capacity for something, or they want to integrate their reflective practice sessions or whatever it might be. I think that solidarity is going to be vital because we are a small profession. We are a tiny profession compared to many, and the infrastructure we have is marginal. When people say, what's the college doing? What you mean is, what are these 12 people doing in their evenings? So there is that sense in which we just have to stick together. The second thing I liked, and Simon stole that too, I wanted to reflect was on the sense of confidence. A sense of confidence in what we do. And I really enjoyed that in the plenary feedback yesterday morning. Quite surprised. I thought people were going to share about, this is the exciting new project we're doing. I know I tried to suggest that we don't, but I still expected it. And what I got were people saying things like, what we do is work of value. What we do is valuing people. What we do. And I really hope that as people go away, they hold that sense of confidence that what we're doing is a pretty important thing. And we're not dressing up in the clothes of professionalism as a self-defense mechanism. What we do is valuable, and therefore we want it to be done professionally. and it felt like that's the right way around. Does that resonate? I just feel that that's what we're doing. We're doing something of value, and so we want to do it professionally. Not, we just better dress up and look a bit like everybody else, otherwise, who knows, they might get rid of us. My final point is that there is a lot to do in terms of the coming few years in healthcare chaplaincy. And we have the new guidelines which we expect to come. And I really am hoping that they will set a benchmark of what trusts are expected to deliver. But they're going to mean nothing unless we then work with them. And by we, I mean a genuine we. Unless we work with them, unless we get them under the nose of the right people. But there's no point shoving a guideline under the nose if they say, oh, okay, you've said that, so where's your data? You know, we'll need to be prepared. Every department will need to be prepared for how we use that. So when it says this is the benchmarking figures, well, what's your current figures? How much are you amplifying the staff you have through honorary chaplains, through volunteers? The narrative, we've got a lot of work to do to make that go forward. We've got work on the diversity, the inclusion in the workforce, which the college has been doing for 3 years. It's still dragging on, and we still haven't finished it. Guidance for on-call. 3 years ago, again, the college was asked for. What with COVID and many other things, we haven't delivered as a college, as an OPC. These are the things that the college needs to do. The things I think that we need to do individually is we need to support each other, and we need to ask for support. I really don't like hearing that somebody who's been a member of the college has gone through a hellish situation in work and they haven't got hold of a colleague in another trust. I don't even necessarily mean formally through, getting somebody from a regional rep. I just mean calling a colleague in another trust to be on the journey with them. I remember a colleague years ago who did speak to me with a college hat on and said, it's pretty ropey. And they told me what pretty ropey meant. And there were 3 weeks before their contract was going to be ended and they were being performance managed out of the trust. And I did think, why was this call not 3 months ago? So that's my plea, that we do see the people we've enjoyed seeing today, these mobile numbers we've got, and we give them a call. Yes, you can call the college if there's an issue, but let's just support each other. And my final point is, you can look around the room. I know the comment earlier about silver hair, thank you. My hair started going grey when I was 16, so we're not a young profession, and we probably will never be a young profession. People come into chaplaincy often in a different phase in life. We come with a lot of wisdom from other areas. My heads up to you is, if you've been a chaplain for 5 years, you are an experienced chaplain. Bad luck. You are now one of the grown-ups. And so you will find, and this is me being very narrowly speaking about the college, next January, there'll be an election. We'll be looking for a whole bunch of regional reps. The way we're going to do our work, we're going to try to make it more inclusive and invite folk that aren't part of college life to help us with guidance. So you'll get invitations to come and be supportive. Please put your hand up and engage. If you've been working 5 years, you are one of the grown-ups. In fact, you may be one of the grown-ups and we're working 10 weeks, to be fair. So please, as you go back, enjoy what you've taken from the college, but also, please also get ready to be part of the future in terms of what we're going to be doing in the years to come, because it's interesting times. But thank you, and thank you for all that you brought to the conference. Is there any more housekeeping? Oh. Room access cards. I love these cheat sheets, can I say? They're just marvellous. They make you think like you know what you're doing. Room access cards and name badges. Please make sure they're all put in the bag. And if you separate the one that came from college to the one that came from the suite here, that will just give Alison one less job to do. Don't forget feedback forms. Refreshments are available. They're not switching the coffee machines off before you go. And safe journey. Yes,
Thank you.